Welcome to HIListically Speaking. I'm Hilary Russo, certified holistic health coach and health and wellness journalist. This is an empowering place to explore self-awareness, self-love, and transformation through health, healing, and humor. By sharing life-changing experiences, knowledge, and guests with varied expertise, we'll explore who we are, how we got that way, and what it takes to be a happy and healthy grown-up. Mind, body, and spirit. I'm glad you're here. I think back to a time when I was a young news anchor, working the morning shift from 4 a.m. to noon, only to hit the gym immediately after, come home, grab some lunch, maybe take a nap, and then I'd jet off to school for an evening class as I worked on my master's degree. I was in my 20s, and I probably averaged maybe 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, if I was lucky. I had this mindset, sleep when you're dead. Zombie or not, I was wired and I was hustling. When I moved to New York City, the story was the same. Just a new zip code and more activities to keep me, quote unquote, busy. And it was auditions, workouts, QVC appearances at all hours of the night, maybe food, maybe breathing, maybe sleep. Things have changed. Not just for me, but for many of us who, no pun intended, wake up. We realize the value of self-care, self-worth, and, self-preservation. And when I thought about this topic, one person more than anyone came to mind. My dear friend, Melissa Ruiz. If there is one girl who knows about doing the hustle, it is Mel. It was hard to nail this girl down, sometimes even for coffee, because she was always boarding a plane somewhere or running to teach another workout somewhere. And for a former pageant girl who was no stranger to the stage, a fitness trainer who was lifting way more than weights, and a public speaker who was telling her story and encouraging others to do the same, it was clear something needed to change. And you're about to hear what happened. Get ready for a little show and tell with Mel on this episode of HIListically Speaking. Show and tell with Mel. Look who's here.
Hey.
I am so excited to talk to you, mainly because you and I are very good friends, but also there's so much that you have to offer. So holding space for you on HIListically Speaking is no questione.
I really appreciate that. And it's tough to know that we are friends and I haven't seen your face in a very long time. And so it's cool. Even on a screen, you're very clear. Your smile is still there.
Yeah, I would have to say during this pandemic time, it has definitely been months of reconnecting, collaborating, creating, because we're not having to go anywhere. And I guess that's the positive to all this, is that we are able to connect with people on the digital level more so than we ever had. We're very fortunate that if we're going through a pandemic, we're not doing it like, the Spanish flu when they didn't have internet.
Could you imagine? What would we do?
Well, I think if we didn't have the digital age, we wouldn't know any different. But if they just took everything away from us, we would be in a hurt locker.
Well, when Google kind of crashed the other day, I was like, imagine if this is how we had to live quarantine.
You mean, imagine if we had to go back to living like when we grew up and we didn't have internet?
Yeah, that would be scary. People would lose their minds. It has been a challenge, but I think in light of everything that we've had to learn and adapt through, like you said, we've connected more, we've collaborated more. And I think it is the bubble that was going to pop, right? When it comes to education, when it comes to technology, when it comes to how we do life, this bubble was bound to pop. And it took a pandemic for everything to go virtual.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have ever been more clear in how I speak because of it. And being a public speaking coach, that's been a tremendous value. We don't have body language anymore. We're walking out on the sidewalk. I can't even see your mouth. So just communication has shifted. The access to communication has shifted, right? Our fatigue is now through our eyeballs because of Zoom and screen time. I should have bought stock in blue blocker glasses.
Girlfriend, no joke. And Zoom.
And Zoom. Yeah. I regret. Looking back, hindsight is 2020.
Literally.
Oh no, that's a terrible phrase now.
Yeah, I know, it really is. But it's so true. I mean, how did we know? And look, I have to say, back in April, April and May, I was doing so many, and you joined in one or two of them as well, and then attended a couple of my havening sessions online. I was doing them so much because I wanted to help people on such a big level in the beginning. We didn't know where this was going, that my eyes started actually clicking on the inside. And I'm like, what is happening? I was getting headaches, and, being present, I was really eliminating some of my own self-care to help others with their self-care,
Absolutely.
and we really need to be mindful of what we're doing in our own self-care as well as the collective care,
It's such a coach thing too,
Oh, it
right?
is.
We give, we give. And then you look up and you're like, okay, one, what day is it? Two, have I showered? And three, I think I need to eat something.
And pee.
And pee.
That's so true. As coaches or practitioners or anything like that, there's so many of us are empaths too. We are the givers. We want to help others, but the first person we really need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, because we're no good to anyone.
I remember back in the day, I worked in higher education and I worked in residence life, and I led teams of young folks, 18 to 22 years old, as they were RAs, resident assistants on college campuses and the res halls. And part of my training them was that very sentence is, if you don't take care of yourselves, it is going to be impossible for you to take care of others. And now fast forward 15 years, I was like, dang it.
Right, if we only knew.
If I only started better practices 15 years ago.
Well, the cool thing is, I think we're seeing that in the education system now, especially, I mean, with me being a college professor, I see that, well, it's twofold, really. I mean, we're seeing a higher level of anxiety and stress and depression, and just, I mean, with the internet, because it's creating this space for comparison, and everyone is trying to be like everyone else, and the influencing and all that stuff can be very detrimental. But then on the other side, I think my students at least, are much more aware of their own mental health and emotional well-being. I certainly wasn't thinking about that in college.
Absolutely not.
I would say the final projects my students just did this winter semester, out of 15 kids in this one class I do, my on-camera presentation journalism class, I think about 8 of them focused their final topic, their final show that they had to do, in mental health field. I was like amazed by it and so happy that they're in touch with that.
You have me on reflecting mode, because my 2 cohorts of show and tell with Mel, I'm looking back, we had stories of healing after surgery, ignoring all the signs that something was wrong, right? Taking care of yourself. We had stories about why, right? Why they coach, why they do what they do. And it was because of a breakdown that they had in themselves. So yeah, it's such and it's not on purpose. I don't think we as coaches prompt, hey, what's your why? What is your wellness story? We don't ask that. And you're right. I think just a sign of the times that there's a wellness focus that folks are coming around to more and more for themselves, and talking about it really sheds a light that nobody's alone in this.
Definitely. And the more we realize that we're not alone and that other people are going through something, even if it's not the same thing, it's something similar. I feel like we have more tools to heal because we see ourselves as a collective,
Absolutely. And we are biologically wired to seek out people like us, or people that we like, right? That's it. And so to all of the folks that live alone during this time, get a roommate or a pet, or come move in with me. And so
careful there, darling.
Not that I have space. Sorry, Dave. But knowing that the connection is necessary, our brains need it, crave it, we thrive on it. And it's really coming full circle for some of the work that I've done for me. I was, professional public speaker, 5 years talking about community. How do specifically college students create communities outside of the classroom? Instead of going from car to class to class, class back to car, staying on campus, getting to know folks that read the same books, that draw the same in the same style. And now more than ever, that's key to our survival, is finding people like us or finding people we like. And before it was, yeah, join a club. And now it's, please, someone hang out with me on Zoom. I'm lonely. But that self-awareness of I'm lonely and seeking out help, not everybody's there. And this is a time.
Yeah, definitely. That takes us back because, you were working with a company that was sending you out on the road a lot. I remember I was like, hey, can we get together? You're like, I'm in Altoona, or whatever. Like you were all over the place.
Altoona, Pennsylvania.
I'm pretty sure you were in Altoona at some point.
Yeah.
But you would travel from college campus to college campus, with this program. And it was so empowering. And I'm sure it helped your own speaking skills as well, being in front of, and storytelling, not just speaking, it's storytelling, it's sharing. Whereas you have that part of you, but also let's go back a little bit. Here's this gal that you've been on stage for a long time, starting as someone in pageant life and then moving on to, you've been in front of the camera, you've been on stage, you've done it all. So there's been a lot of skills that have been built from this. Kind of goes back to how we know each other too, from Daily Burn, right? Yeah. So how did Mel come to be and find her spot?
Oh, Mel's a weirdo in this world.
I'm going to use that as your soundbite.
Perfect. I've been on stage since I was about 3 years old, and it started in the womb. I was born with a rare birth defect where my kneecaps were on the insides of my knees. So rather than the patella being right at the joint, so the kneecap would sit right at the base of the joint, mine drifted inside my leg. And so when I was born, the doctors were like, something's not quite right. And they popped them back into place. And I learned how to walk with leg braces on, like Forrest Gump style. Yes.
I never knew this.
So, there's pictures of me, it's the 80s, with these like brown, like hard shoes to keep my ankles stable. And then these metal connectors on the base. So I would like wobble. I had to wobble side to side as I learned how to walk because my kneecaps had to stay in the right place, my femur, my tibia, all of it had to stay in the right place because I was growing. I was a toddler. And the doctor said the best thing for my legs to grow strong would be dance or soccer. And I think I was 3 or 4. My mom took me to a soccer practice and all the girls were running and, back and forth. And I just looked at her and I was like, Mom, they are sweaty and dirty. So she bought me a tutu and I started ballet. So it literally started in the womb. That's how I ended up on stage for the first time. I was a competitive dancer growing up, tap, jazz, ballet, lyrical, loved it all. And I loved being part of a team, part of a group. People would always say, oh, you should do a pageant. You should do a solo in the next dance competition. And I would just shake my head like, nope, not getting on stage by myself. I had this crippling stage fright when it came to being on stage alone, particularly when it came to singing. To this day, I won't sing in public. I'll, pretend, let's go to karaoke. Great idea. And pass the mic. And so I wasn't doing it. Wasn't happening. And then a flip switched and I did my first pageant and I won. It's a really good confidence boost to win the first thing that you do on stage by yourself. And ever since then, I realized there's a power to being on stage, saying what you want to say, wearing what you want to wear. And there's so much power in that. And I didn't see a lot of young women that looked like me, curly hair, brown skin. It just wasn't. It wasn't available. I grew up in West Deptford, New Jersey. We were the only brown family. And by family, I mean me and my mom. My mom raised me. She was a single mom. My dad, in and out. He's around. He's a cool dude. We'll grab a beer every now and then now.
I was like, then?
No.
Yeah, he was a cool dad.
That'd be cool. That explains a lot why my mom was like, no. But my mom, she was very strict. My only job was to get straight A's. I was not allowed to have a part-time job. I couldn't hang out at the mall like young kids did or go to the movies and things like that. And so my life really revolved around school and dance. Those were my those were my studies. When I was 11, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and that shifted life a little bit. She moved in with us. We were taking care of her. And I remember in my college essay, I wrote about Gram. And the phrase that always sticks out at me is my grandmother was somebody who looked after me, right? She was a partial parent. And it's like we had reversed roles, that mentally I was now the caretaker. And what an experience. That disease is really terrible. And I grew up really fast, seeing what I saw, doing what I did to help keep as much of her dignity as I could. No 12, 13-year-old should have to think about wiping their grandmother after she goes to the bathroom, right? There was a lot that looking back, there was a lot that I think I missed out on as a teenager. But had I not gone through what I did, I don't know that I would be as strong as I think I am, or as empathic as I think I've become and grown into over the years.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot to take on as a kid. And yeah, but those roles do tend to reverse anyway as we get older, and the parental role does tend to slip in. And it's a beautiful thing when we think about somebody nurturing us during our lives, and we not that we owe it to them, but it naturally, organically, it just comes to be. But it is I would imagine that's a lot to take on when you're still growing yourself and needing the nurturing too.
And you hear the word Alzheimer's for the first time at 11 and you're like, what?
Yeah.
And you do the deep dive as best as you can, because Encyclopedia Britannica or AOL connection, you're just waiting 10 minutes for the definition to load up. So even just the time that we were in, it was hard to be a kid and curious. There wasn't a lot of material or access to find the things that I needed to find to be better, or to help my grandmother more. There were books and things like that. And as I got older, I went to college. She actually passed away right before the semester started, my freshman year, like the day before. And I was like, I can't go to class. But I don't even know which way is up right now. And like even in her passing, there were lessons there. I was supposed to compete for a pageant, my first pageant at the Miss America level when I was 18. It was 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, something like that after her death. And I just looked at my mom and I told her, I'm tired. This hurts too much. And she looked at me and asked one simple question: what would Graham want you to do? Well, now I'm crying, Mom. Thanks. So I competed. My platform, now they call it Social Impact Initiative. It was Alzheimer's awareness. I don't think there will ever be a cure for this particular disease. But yeah, back in 2004, 2005, not a lot of people were talking about it the way that they are today. And it was a little bit of a shift in my mentality too, to then talk about it and to be able to talk about it, because there's such an emotional connection to the person. And my job was to educate on the disease. And in my head, I couldn't untie the two.
Couldn't separate.
It's a little easier now with time, obviously. And you learn that the scientific, what is Alzheimer's? Well, it's plaques and tangles on the brain. And if you take a brain scan of someone who's done drugs for 10 years, it's very similar to an Alzheimer's patient 6 months in, right? And you just learn and dig into all of the material and it becomes information overload. But it was empowering because now it wasn't a thing Graham had. It is a problem that could be solved. And I look at stories that way too. I look at stories as lessons. And when I share, it's not about the pain. Usually those are the stories that are easily recalled, is the pain, the hard stuff. If somebody says, what's your favorite TV show? That's a harder question for me than tell us about the town you lived in, because there's pain attached to the town, not to I Love Lucy.
Right. We had a empowering conversation the last time we chit-chatted, and you had mentioned, which I love this, and I wrote it down. You said, I'm human. I'm not this or that. We are all walking stories. And it's so true, Mel. We're all walking stories. It's empowering.
Yeah. I hope it is. And I hope people find power in their own story. Whenever people say, I don't have a story.
Oh, that's cute.
Let's set aside 30 minutes and have a coffee.
Right.
And I'm going to pull something out of you.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like in this day and age, and I know with you coming from a background where you were going into the area of social work, and that's your background. And then you becoming a fitness instructor, which again, that's a coach, and then doing the work you're doing now, storytelling and coaching, and myself with, the holistic health coaching and the havening practitioner work and journalist, the space for telling stories or holding space for others to tell stories, there is no end to that. Everyone has a story. I think where the muckety muck happens is sometimes people don't want to embrace their stories because maybe it's trauma, maybe there's upset. They don't want to bring up, lift the rug. But what I love to tell clients is that your story is there no matter what. You can still change the narrative. Use your story as power. Your pain is the purpose of your true power. Use your story. And I think is also with you and I, with the work we do, a lot of times, especially in counseling and therapy, you're triggering and re-traumatizing the story over and over again. And a lot of times therapists would just sit on the other side and not really interact because you were taught, no, this isn't about me. This person just needs to share their stuff. And I think we're seeing a different age now where in therapeutic means whatever you're using, whatever modality or coaching or practitioner work, knowing that we're human on the other side too, and we could contribute a little bit to the story, it makes us real too.
Yes. And that is huge. Yeah. Even as a speaker, right? All the time it would be, oh, Melissa, can I have a picture with you? Can I have your autograph? Can you sign my book and this and that? And this sensation of being the sage from the stage. And I never wanted to be that. I wanted to be the female, curly-haired Puerto Rican public speaker that wore Chucks because heels are very uncomfortable. That somebody could walk up to and be like, listen, I think you're really cool. Can I have a picture with you? Right? I didn't want to be that. Can I have a picture? Can you sign my, can I do? And for the first couple of speeches, I had to kind of shift that because I showed up in the blazer. I showed up, professional with heels. And a few speeches, I would straighten my hair. A few speeches in, I was like, this is exhausting. And this isn't me. And the inauthenticity you feel when you show up as not your full self is exhausting. And I know clients feel that. I know that's why folks are attracted to havening. That's why folks are attracted to public speaking sessions like the one that I run, because they're exhausted of feeling fake. They have to put on a different personality to share their story. Or it gets muddled up. They go to speak and they and they forget half the things that they wanted to say. And when we practice, when we breathe, when we haven, when we just take a moment to come back into ourselves, back into our body, and realize I am not my full self right now. What do I need to do to get back there? And then show up fully. And that's when I would show up with neon green Chucks.
I don't think I've seen those in your wardrobe.
Yep. Oh, well, I can't wear them now. I have plantar fasciitis, getting old, whatever. But yeah, then it was funky sneakers. I would like look at DSW and all whoever had sneakers. I'm like, show me funky stuff. And the rest would be, I still wear a blazer, especially if it was a professional staff. But I knew if I was going to be relatable, if I wanted people to really hear the message, I couldn't be a talking head. And that's an important aspect of it too, whether you're running a meeting, whether you're a boss, whether you are pitching to your boss, showing up as your full self matters.
So
it matters.
It's so true. Or then we're all cookie cutters on a TEDx stage talking about the same thing, just with a different story. You've got to bring that. Yeah. So boring. You need to bring your authentic self to anything, whether you're on a TEDx stage or you're just in front of 2 or 3 people or one person. Just be who you are. That's the beauty of who you are,
And the misconception too of TED is that folks just sign up or show up and they get to go on stage and talk for 18 minutes and they're amazing. Chances are these people have worked on those speeches for anywhere from 6 months to a year. because they're not great orators. They're scientists, they're researchers, especially on the TED level. You get to the TED level, those are nerds. Mm-hmm. And we've asked them to speak. And so they've been practicing for a year. Yeah. TEDx a little bit more funky and fun at that level. But it's what's that quote about social media? Looking at somebody's social media is like their highlight reel. And I think talks like TED and TEDx, we have to take that with a grain of salt of months and months and months of practice. Mm-hmm. And their story is filtered into those talks, which is amazing. But it takes practice to be authentic.
Yeah. And to act and be okay too with the fact that as storytellers as we are, is to be okay with you're not looking for acceptance on the other side of that microphone, camera, the boundary between the stage and the seats. That's not why you're there. Right. And those who are looking for that from being a public speaker are not on the stage for the right reasons. You're there to share so that you can touch.
The vulnerability.
Yeah. And Brene Brown talks about that, the courage and the vulnerability. Hey, shout out to Brene. We love her. But she's one of many that the story is so authentic and that it resonates with you. We want to be empathetic and resonant when we're putting what we have out there. We're all learning from our own story.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's funny you say that. That's one of the lessons that I go over in Show and Tell with Mel is that the delivery of your story should be therapeutic, not therapy.
Yes, great. Love it.
It took me a long time to be able to talk about my grandmother without bursting into tears. And so that practice, the time removed from the traumatic experience helps. But if you're not talking about it, it's just sitting there. The therapy, the life therapy doesn't take place. And it's knowing that every time you say it, you might learn something new. But every time you say it, you might touch someone new. There's someone out there that needs to hear your message. Mel Robbins she was in her car and just recorded this. And it's true. Someone out there is waiting to hear your story. And you mentioned Brene Brown, that she's one of many that studies vulnerability, and she is, but she's known because she's her, right? She got her little Southern accent, right? She's a little funky. She's real. And that same thing holds true when we share, when we talk about ourselves and our stories, is that someone out there is going to flock to you, Hilary, as a havening coach, because they think your voice is soothing. And they might go to one of your colleagues and be like, nope, not for me.
Yeah.
You're relaying a similar message, but it's the vibe, it's the tribe, right, that we're flocking to and we're finding as we navigate this messy world.
I also think it's really important to, like you said, with your tribe, is to align with people, like-minded people, meaning that I want to be around people who are open to giving and not feeling the sense of, well, I do that too. And then you're suddenly in competition. I don't play that game. I can't. I'm like, if somebody, like you said, doesn't vibe with who I am and what I'm sharing, then I'm going to refer you to someone who I think you better align with. And also, if you make that decision on your own without me referring you, more power to you. This is your journey. I want you to succeed and to excel and to thrive. I don't take it personally,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And with my fellow coaches, practitioners, therapists, whatever is around me in the colleague world, I want you to thrive, that's why you're here. So those are the kind of people you want to surround yourself with, not the ones that feel that there's a competition going on.
Yes. And that's exhausting in itself.
What are we in high school?
I remember when, right before I moved to New York City, I was trying very hard to convince a hometown friend of mine to get out of our town. Like, my town it's not a place you stay. And a lot of people do. My mom still lives there. People stay. But I knew for me, this is not a town that I stay in. My soul, my spirit couldn't take it. And a friend of mine, I kept trying to get out, move, do something, take a trip, move to DC for a month, right? Like, just get out. No, we bought a house and this and that. And I was like, oh. And finally I get a call from her, and the question was very clear. Melissa, how did you know it was time to leave? And I started dancing. I was like, yeah, she's ready to go and get out. And it was her time. It was her journey. That was part of her story that she needed to tell. She needed to get to a point where she wanted to grow. And as a friend, you support that growth when they are ready. And I talk about that as well in some of my talks, is in engagement in life, on the college campus level, right? Engagement in general. It happens one step at a time. Can't be forced. You can't drag somebody into it before they're ready. It is their journey. It is their exploration. And you'll know, because they'll call you up and say, how did you know you were ready? Well, the fact that you're asking this question, you might be ready too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Love that. How empowering is that? That's super duper. Let's talk about New York. How we met. We met through Daily Burn, the live streaming fitness show. But before there was Daily Burn, there was Mel coming to the city, like you mentioned, and doing the hustle. Like, it's almost like it basically is like being a performer, going from audition to audition with what you were doing.
Yeah. I moved to New York in 2014. I moved for a boy. I don't recommend it.
We've all been there. Maybe more than once.
Maybe, yeah. Nope, same. That's my Florida chapter.
Another episode.
It's another episode. I knew I was a city girl. I knew. I went to Rutgers in New Brunswick, and I loved the city kind of life that even that gave, being an hour on the train from New York. Just the vibe, the energy. You want to go get pizza at midnight? Yeah, somewhere is open. And when I moved, I had just been let go from a job in Jersey. Lots and lots of budget cuts. Therefore, and I had a new position. My position was 8 months old. And they were like, well, sorry about that. Like last one in, first one out kind of thing. And so I was like, okay, what happens next? And it was New York City. Imagine that. It took me a little bit to kind of get my bearings. Truth be told, I was a bartender for a little bit. I had just gotten my certification as a personal trainer. I, had a couple of clients and a couple of classes, but this wasn't the setup that I thought it was going to be. It was working the bar until midnight and then have a 6 a.m. client. That's not gonna last. And so I put my resume out there and I went back into higher education. I was working at LIU Brooklyn, and I was there for a little less than 2 years before transitioning into public speaking. And fitness was the side hustle. And I liked it. I liked it that way. I still loved fitness because it wasn't the hustle yet. I was living a completely different hustle in higher ed, because it's do this, try this, reach out to this, email the students. They didn't, okay, go find them. I'm not knocking on their door. But yes, go knock on their door. Higher ed and student affairs, it pretty much is fitness. And then, transitioning into public speaking was quite a whirl as well, because where I was, like the job that I had was now my clients' jobs. I suddenly just flipped to the other side. I would tease. I was like, yeah, I went to the dark side. But it was fun. It was planes, trains, and automobiles on a regular basis, sometimes all three in the same day. And I loved it. I really did. Looking back now, if, COVID and all of that, it's like, maybe that wasn't the safest, just expression of life. But, and I think back now too, all these revelations are happening now. Here I am alone, traveling, talking about community and finding your tribe. And I'd be gone for weeks at a time and come home and have, folks like you, like, hey, want a dinner? And I'm like, I'm going to stare at a wall for 3 days. But like, after that, I'm totally ready.
No, we really had to put it on the calendar because you're like, you needed to like defrag.
Yes. I'm like, wait, I don't know what time zone I'm in. Because in the same day, a layover, a time change, California and back again. I think I did in 36 hours, I went from San Francisco to Miami to New York.
And Altoona.
And Altoona. Yeah.
I think that's a funny name for a town. Sorry, Altoona people.
It's silly. It's so silly. But imagine flying to California for a 1-hour talk. California's far.
And lots of hugging. so much freaking hugging. Oh, how would that change? I mean, that's got to change now, at least for now.
Air hugs.
I mean, you're free hugging like a mofo.
Yeah. But all the while, even through all of this, fitness was still my side hustle. I would get subs for classes. I'd get off of a plane and go teach class. Like fitness was that fun for me still. And I just look back, I'd get back at 11 o'clock at night and be like, daily burn, 7 a.m. Okay. Just this fire almost. And it might be a little COVID brain, but that is very exhausting to think about right now.
Yeah. You might need another goat yoga retreat. We had a great time doing that.
Oh, that was so
Has
fun.
anybody out there goat yoga? Holler at me. Let me know. I'm curious because Mel and I did a goat yoga retreat in upstate New York with
glamping.
Oh, we were glamping. Yeah.
Canvas.
It's part of self-care though. Look, how much yoga we did. I'm not sure when we have like little baby goats pooping on us, but it was self-care and community because you're back with your peeps. And, but you were go. And sometimes, I mean, knowing you could tell when someone's exhausted, but it was the fire in you. And I guess that leads me to this question. There was a lack of self-care in some aspects there, even though you were providing a sense of community and how to take care of yourself and others out there in the world. What about those self-boundaries? What about the boundaries, Mel?
What are boundaries? What? In that time, I didn't have them. I didn't know the word no. There were times where I could have said no to a trip, to a project, to a speech. I could have said no to allow an extra day in the city to kind of catch up with myself. And I didn't. I just kept going. A relationship failed as a result of it. It wasn't the only issue that factored into that. But it was easier, looking back, I think it was easier to say yes and be gone and just be wrapped up in the celebrity of it, be on tour, than to sit down and have that tough conversation with myself that I was exhausted. And, it's putting on that facade of I am happy, free hugs, community, woo, get on a plane. That's my nap. Do it again. Get on a train. That's my nap. Do it again. And I think for me, there was solace in the routine of the anti-routine because it was just me, right? It was me and my backpack. I didn't have to rely on anybody else. I didn't have to check in on anybody else's feelings or schedules. If I wanted a 6 a.m. flight, I took it. If I wanted a red eye, I took it. And at the time, it was a way to find independence and calm when everything else was completely the opposite. And the hustle, the fire and the hustle just kind of kept me going, get off the plane, go to class. Looking back now, I realize it was a very distorted feeling, but it felt like purpose. And it was disguised as exhaustion. I am serving, I am giving, I am teaching, and star jumps and jumping jacks and free hugs and back again. And the only person at the end of the day that I had really done the damage to was myself. And you get to a point where you're like, if I look at another Amtrak ticket, if I get on another plane and my ears pop one more time, I'm gonna just burst into tears. And I didn't quite cry on an airplane, but let's just say it was close. And that was my sign. And when you're asking the question, are you ready? When you get so wrapped into it that you can't even ask the question, that you're just on the verge of tears, you've already crossed the line of exhaustion. You're already past it. Your body has just given up. There's no evaluation period anymore. You're just done. And that was the point that I got to towards the end of 2019. And what a time to leave a full-time job. 5 months later, the world shut down. But without it, show and tell with Mel wouldn't exist. Without it, I wouldn't be on this podcast. Without it, I wouldn't be teaming up with an amazing nonprofit. Without it, I wouldn't be part of a secret project that I'm not allowed to say anything about yet, right? Without it, none of the things, I have a whiteboard in front of me that I'm looking at, none of the things on this whiteboard would exist had it not been for COVID, right? Had it not been for a global pandemic, I can't even imagine what my life would look like right now. I don't know. I don't know. Would I have burned out teaching 20 fitness classes a week? Maybe. Would my body have given out before my brain did? Probably. But had it not been for the massive pause button on our world, where would we be?
Yeah.
Bonkers to think
it
about.
is. And I think about that all the time. I'm like, the past, 9, 10 months, whatever, I lost track. It has really given us a time to sit back, reflect, do our own work, inner work. I don't mean just like physical work, do work on ourselves. If we've really taken that time to sit back and take a moment, because we've been so robbed of moments because we are go, 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 go. Especially in a city like New York, right? This has really been a very powerful time. As much as I miss people and hugs and being around and traveling, because I do love traveling for both leisure and work, I think we need to see what is the lesson that we've learned from this. And I really do hope once the world does fully open again, we are able to take what we've learned in this time and go forward with it positively and keep those boundaries and keep that self-care and keep the collective care and continue to build the freaking awesome things we're building, but with the reminder like, oh, maybe there needs to be a little bit of pandemic in my back of my brain,
Yeah, that little
bit
tactic.
of like, maybe we need a little like pandemic therapy.
Yeah. I always think of the movie WALL-E. When at the end they're all like zooming around on their cars and they have to figure out how to work their legs again.
Yeah, it is sea legs in a way.
I don't want to get to that point, but I think we could be headed there if people aren't clear that it doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be self-care or self-harm, right? That's not the opposite. That's not. Or it's not the solution. There's a way to achieve all your dreams. There's a way to build a business, to take the vacations, to buy the house, to start the family, to move to Antarctica, whatever. There's a way to do it all without breaking down our psyche along the way. And in that hustle culture, in that go, go, go culture, there isn't room for it. There were wellness bloggers and health and fitness and yoga. They're all there saying, you have to take care of yourself. They've been saying it for years. As a trainer, we all said it and we're like, yeah, that's cute. But the word hustle, the phrase hustle culture is so harmful. It's harmful to how we heal from a surgery. One of the young women in Show and Tell with Mel, that was her problem, is she's home on bed rest from her doctors, but in her head felt like she was supposed to be doing something. The celebrities have a baby and heal in 3 seconds. So of course I can heal from a major surgery. Somebody just cut me in half. This is fine. Let me go run a marathon. And that's so harmful to our brains, to our bodies, to our connections, to our friends, our family, our loved ones. Like, we have to let people know when we're in that spot so that they can be like, hey, stop that. I need you to relax. You need to sit there and simply breathe because you haven't taken a breath in 6 weeks, in 9 months, in whatever it is. But hustle culture, that phrase, and before I embraced it, I was like, yeah, side hustle. And now I see just how bad it can be once it's how you operate. I've noticed it in these past 9 months is the work of diving in, of starting something new, starting a business, starting a project. You get into hustle brain, and I'll look up and I'll be like, 3 days have passed and I haven't gone outside.
And my dog needs walking.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Hey, we talked about that last time. Like, when's the last time I've actually stepped outside?
Yeah. Have I looked out the window? Honestly, when I look out the window now, the snow surprises me.
But it's true. Like the whole idea of hustle, I mean, that word can be very negative in a lot of ways. And one thing my brother told me years ago is don't confuse activity with achievement. Like we get in that whole mindset of like doing dishes. Well, that's an activity. What's the achievement? But also being in the moment, being okay, being present and not having to think ahead. Like if you are lying on the couch, if you are on the couch and just recuperating or getting better, whether it's mental or physical, then be on the freaking couch, recuperating and getting better and stop thinking about, oh, but I got this, and this to do. Our brain goes into hustle mode.
Oh, and that was me last night. I was like, okay, relax. But my brain was like, okay, checklist. Okay, write that on the do this and then do this and then do this. And I was like, stop it.
We feel bad. We feel guilty if we aren't doing.
Yes.
And then if we don't check everything off the list, we're so hard on ourselves that we didn't check everything off the list.
And then we're behind, and then it's on tomorrow's list, and but it's all over our self-imposed deadlines.
Oh, it's the worst boss ever is ourselves sometimes.
Yes. And on one hand, there's some deadlines where like, yeah, I can push that back. And then on the other hand, it's stressful. It's stress inducing. And that phrase that you said reminded me of something that I just put on Twitter, which I never tweet. So the fact that I did this was very strange. But now I forget what it was. All goals are projects, but not all projects are goals. So in the grand scheme of life, if we have a series of goals of things we want to achieve, clearing out your spam is probably just a project that isn't going to move you forward on to your goals. And that when I was like, dang it. When I look at all the things I want to achieve, I'm looking at my notebook now and I was like, well, scrolling reels at 2 a.m. did not move me forward.
Right. You can't call it research.
Yes.
I love using the word research. I'm like, well, I was on Instagram for an hour because I was researching other blah, blah, blah. It's easy to go there. It really is. But being very clear on what your goals are, your intentions are, is important. And if you're not super clear, take a step back, be present, breathe a little bit, meditate, haven, yoga, whatever, and just ask the question. Because when you ask the question, the answers do come. But I get it. I look at my bullet journal all the time and I'm like, send emails to get everyone's addresses. Yeah, that's not moving it forward.
I carry this pile throughout the apartment.
Oh my gosh.
And the pile is essentially, this time of year, you transition from one planner to another. So I have 2020 and 2021 because people are scheduling stuff for like the first 2 weeks of January. So now I have to carry 2 planners around. But in here is also, I'm taking an advanced storytelling course, right? As the instructor, I'm also the student. So there's my notebook there when I'm inspired to put some details into stories. I have my gratitude journal, and then I have my regular journal. And it just follows me around the apartment because there's always that moment of inspiration. And then in the middle of it is the to-do pile, right? It's the thank you cards. There goes a planner. There's the thank you cards. There's the switch cell phone carriers. But it's the to-do list. I literally carry my to-do list around my apartment with me. And it's external. So part of me is like, okay, it's fine. It is there. I know the world isn't going to end if I don't switch my cell phone carrier. And so I can push that off. It's just a project. It's not a goal. But show and tell with Mel, my cell phone, I'm on stories. I'm starting another cohort in January. I want people to know about it. So like, that's a goal. And I have to map it out. So the passion planners, they come with me. But it's a shift in practice. I would say yes to things and, put it on my calendar, and that's what made it important. And now, because I use a physical calendar, because writing it out is almost meditative for me too. Is like, if I put this on the calendar, is this really going to move the business forward, or is it just going to make me tired that day? Does it have to be on that day? I can't tell you how much more intentional, because of the writing of things I have become in these past couple of months, just looking of, okay, I only have a 30-minute break there. I only have a 10-minute break. I don't even have a break there. And then I'm late to stuff because I got to pee.
By the way, that, I'm not sure, is that an activity or an achievement? I'm pretty sure that
that's a human goal, right?
That the bio break is a goal. Yeah,
that's a goal.
It might move you forward. I don't know. It'll move some things forward.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that makes so much sense. And I agree with you. When I start writing things down, they become more intentional. But I also need to be clear, what am I putting down? Are there things that I put down that repeat every day? That's probably an activity, right? Where I'm like, oh, I didn't get to that. I keep putting it down on the calendar, keep putting it down. And it's a mindset. You get into the rhythm of it the more you do it, like with any practice, whether you're fitness, yoga, whatever the practice is, the more you do it, the more it becomes an everyday. So, all right. So that's I'm learning stuff about Mel I didn't know. And this is definitely moving the show and tell with Mel forward too, which has been really great to watch you build over the last, 9 months or so. And you were talking about this before anyway, but it's amazing what we are propelled into, and we fall into it, like that we fall into things when we just give ourselves the space to fall in.
Show and Tell with Mel was not supposed to be a public speaking group. My original plan was to coach young women who were competing in pageants. I was going to be a pageant interview coach. That was what it was supposed to be. It was going to be top 5 consulting. So the P word, had to pivot. and I look back now and I was like, well, shoot. You look, Calvin Hobbes quote, day by day, nothing seems to change, but pretty soon everything's different. And you do the planning, you hire the coaches, you do the things, and day by day you're doing the work, you're going through it, and you look up and everything is different. Whether it be your income, whether it be your outcomes of happiness and where you live. But when we get stuck in the day-to-day and don't look up and realize that everything is different, it does. It takes you on a little brain trip, and that's so important, is look up. Look up every so often. Look up, take a breath, start a gratitude journal, look up and realize that there's value in the mayhem. It's a phrase that I say in Show and Tell. There's your mess. You can turn it into your message. There's something lying underneath that is just waiting for you to dig up, and you just have to look up for a second.
Yeah, look up in more than one way, because we have our faces down in our phones too. Like, can we look up, please? We need to defrag and step away from technology every once in a while, because and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the eye fatigue too. But it's too, our brain has such amazing capacity, but we also need to give it a rest. And I mean, watching where you were to where you are is pretty incredible. And who knows? Well, I don't know what's happening next. By the way, people, I have no idea what the secret she's talking about. And I'm a good friend here.
I'm literally not allowed to say anything yet.
It's okay. I'm excited to find out when and where it happens. So sweet. All right. So here's what we're going to do as we wrap it up. I want to do a rapid fire with you. And what I'm going to do, you know how this works. Throw out a word. You come back with another word, and bada bing, bada boom. Ta-da. Okay.
Let's do it.
I was doing jazz hands in my mind. Okay. Here we go. Pageant.
Coach.
Fitness.
Me.
Storytelling.
Also me.
Cheater. Dance.
Fun.
Hustle.
Ugh.
Okay, that's a word. Independence.
Hard.
Boundaries.
Necessary.
Community.
Love.
Yay. I love when it ends on love. That's good. That's a good one. How can we not end on love? And I do love you. Thank you I do. I'm so proud of you, and I love seeing where you're going. And I can only imagine that the listeners are going to get such value out of this conversation. And I hope feel like a fly on the wall of two girlfriends that are doing more than hustling.
Yes, we're learning to.
We are.
We're learning to, because you're a hard worker too. And I know, and not only are you a storyteller, but you tell other people's stories. And that's exhausting as well. You're taking on other energy. Mm-hmm. You're taking on the inquisitive part that people miss out, right? I don't have a story. And then it's your job to uncover it. And that's a lot. Yeah. Even these podcasts, getting the questions ready. So a huge thank you to you for creating this space, opening literally your home to folks to come in and kind of brag about themselves, but also realize that there's a message after the mess.
There is a message after the mess. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Mel. That means a lot to me. But in closing, what would you like to leave with Holistically Speaking listeners?
Oh, so much. What haven't we talked about yet? I think the biggest thing that I want you all to walk away with is confidence in yourself. Is at the end of the day, that is the only person you have all the time. That's the person you have access to all of the time. So showing up for you, with you, right? Be your own best friend. And I know it's hard and it takes time and practice, but setting yourself up for the best life you possibly can. And we're going to mess it up, and an hour by hour, it'll look differently. It'll feel differently, but showing up for yourself and being your true self. I implore you to figure out who that is and show up with confidence each and every day. The world needs you as you are, not as someone else says you're supposed to be. And we're way more fun when we let out our weird.
Hey, let's let out our weird. Can we do that?
Yeah.
I love it. That was awesome. I'm looking forward to sharing a bit of weird with you and more people. Yeah. So
in person, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Mel. If you're ready for a little show and tell, you can connect with Mel on her website. You'll find that link on the podcast page. And speaking of telling your story, what's yours? I want to know. Connect with me at hilaryrusso.com if you want to share on the show, or if I can support you on your healing journey with Havening. You can also reach out to me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Hilary Russo. I'd love to hear from you. Holistically Speaking is produced by Alan Seals with music by Litbone Redding. Connection is everything, and aligning with you is why I am here. So thanks for listening. And until next time, be kind to your mind and don't forget to laugh.